So, good morning to everyone. Good day. Today is the 9th of Tavis, and it's appropriate that we're starting to learn Tanya with Hashem's help. Be'ez Hashem Yisborach. I hope and pray that we could go through at least the first whole section, the 53 chapters. And the truth is, I would love to go through the entire Tanya, maybe except the last section, the fifth section. So it's a long journey, but it's going to be worthwhile. And it really follows the opening title page that we'll get to in a moment about a long journey. So I ask you to bear with us, and keep your patience. And the particular style of this shiur, I would say maybe how it's different than other shiurim in Tanya is that there'll be a psychological element associated to many of the classes. I mean, I can't say every one, maybe, but as our chevra here know, we try to look at Chassidus, Chabad Chassidus, which emphasizes Chochma Bina Das, the comprehension and understanding with deep ideas, including sometimes Kabbalistic ideas, Kabbalah. But it all goes through the filter of Chochma Bina Das, of the mind. And more importantly, it needs to be processed in the heart. And that we're going to study that in a moment also in the title page. So the shiur that I choose to give, and the style is such a style. So in other words, I want my listeners to know clearly that if you're looking just for technical pshat and Tanya and not more, find yourself another shiur. This is not the type of shiur. This will give you the pshat, and it'll also give you the what we call in Chabad the arum. Arum means the circumference, the greater picture, both historically and both psychologically and emotionally, and that's the style of this shiur. It doesn't fit for everyone. I think it does fit for anyone, but there might be people think it doesn't fit for them. So be it. And there's plenty of shiurim and plenty of svarim, so choose whatever shiur works for you. But this, I believe, is very important, and I believe it's important because there isn't such a thing online as far as I know. So in this way, this will be a unique contribution to the world of Tanya, the world of Chassidus, and the world of Yiddishkeit and Torah. So let's now begin on the title page. Yeah, one more thing. I'm going to go a little faster. I'm not going to stop at every word. For that you have translations in English. But if you feel something is important, stop me, okay? I mean, as always, I do my best to translate everything, but sometimes, I just got to cover some ground. Otherwise, we just get caught and stuck. So that's also an important information before we start. So this title page that you have in front of you was actually written by the author, by the Baal Tanya. And before that, what is the Tanya? Where did it come from? Why was it here? And we're going to study that in the introduction in a few shiurim from now. But basically, people had spiritual issues, and I emphasize spiritual. They weren't coming to ask the Alter Rebbe primarily what color car or horse wagon I should get. How many horses should I have? I don't have money in my bank account. My kids need a shidduch. That wasn't, by and large, at that time, in the beginning of his leadership, what people came to him for. They came to him for guidance in Avodas Hashem. How can I be a better Jew, a better Yid? I'm struggling with issues, with thoughts that I shouldn't be having. I have anger in me. Those were issues. And you could say, Hillel, that the Alter Rebbe was like, to them, a psychologist, a therapist. They came in and he gave them advice, but it was more spiritual advice. That's one nakuda. That's one point. The second point is that the Alter Rebbe already knew these people because they met him privately. They met him in Yechidus. Yechidus is a term meaning in Chabad, one-on-one, where you have a private audience called Yechidus with the Rebbe. many of the people that he had in mind, as I was saying in the introduction, he knew who they were. So they already shared their inner heart with the Alter Rebbe, with this tzaddik, with their Rebbe. And therefore, the advice that he gives in the Sefer is based on personal knowledge of who he's writing for. But there's going to be more to what I'm saying, which will include others who he didn't meet. But at first glance, he said, I don't have any more time to see each of you personally. It was getting overwhelming. So many people were coming. I just don't have the time. So he said, you know what? I'm going to write a sefer. I'm going to write a book. And it's called Tanya. And in this book, I'm going to include issues that you people asked me about, and I'll give you advice, and therefore you study it, think about it, and if you need help, go to the elders in your community, which it says also in the introduction, which we call in Chabad mashpiyim, counselors, spiritual mentors and counselors, and let them decipher for you what I write in case it's not clear, and from that take guidance. This is the overall structure of the Sefer in front of you. And that's why, at the time, 200 years ago, more than 200 years ago, 1790s, when the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya, it was known as Sefer Ha'etzes, a book of advice. It was advice for people. And one last point. Some of the parts of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe said as what we call in Chabad, Marin, Hasidic discourses. So, for example, the first three, the three chapters were said, the Tzemach said either at the Tzemach Tzedek's birth. I forget now the exact tradition, but the point is that some of it, the Alter Rebbe actually said in teaching Hasidus to his Hasidim. So we have a combination of the Tanya is a combination of things that he taught and things that he spoke to people privately. That's what you have in front of you. And how it's relevant to us is because people are people. The fact that today we ask about our health and our wealth and our issues that we confront, and 200 years ago people were more into their spiritual aspects, doesn't mean they didn't need good health and they didn't need good wealth. They did. But to them, the ikar, the primary thing that they were seeking from a tzaddik and a rebbe was ruchnius, not gashmius. That's why in Igeres HaKodesh, in the fourth section of Tanya, letter 22, the Alter Rebbe scolds and lambasts the Hasidim for taking his time and asking about Gashmias. And this is a very controversial issue because in non-Chabad circles, I've discussed this with others, they say your own Rebbe says you shouldn't be nudging him about Gashmias. He's here to give you ruchnisdik advice. How all of a sudden have Hasidim, do Hasidim go to a Rebbe, especially in this case the Alter Rebbe, and ask him about shidduchim and about health and about business advice? If he tells you in letter 20, Igeres HaKodesh 22, not to do that. And you know who asked that question of the previous Rebbe? Our Rebbe. In 1932, the Rebbe asked this exact question to the previous Rebbe. And the previous Rebbe gave him a very long answer. And basically, just to summarize it, the answer is that as the years went on, it became mikubal. It became acceptable because of the situation of what we went through these 200 years, that a Rebbe also addresses the gashmias of a person. So it's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction to what the Alter Rebbe writes, that I'm here primarily to advise your spiritual maladies, not your material malady issues, because the times have changed. That's the facts. You could philosophize whatever you want. The facts on the ground is that most people, and I'm not even talking about today, let's say 100 years ago. I'll give you an example. 1936, someone brought people in to see the previous Rebbe in Poland for Yechidus, Polish Jews. And they weren't Lubavitchers, they were Yidden. And he said he heard them cry their heart out to the previous Rebbe. I'm not well, I have nothing to eat, I need shidduchim. He said, I couldn't take it. He wasn't standing in the room, he was standing behind the curtain. There was no big, the house with rooms, everything was in probably one room with a curtain dividing. And he says, I just couldn't tolerate it. So that's 1936. It's 90 or whatever years from, you know what I'm saying? The community, because we went through everything we've gone through for 200 years, we need a Rebbe, we need a tzaddik to address our Gashmias as well. But it's important to know that the Sefer Tanya, to begin with, was not written with that intention, although he tackles depression and happiness and anger and conceit and all loneliness and friendship, all the issues that psychology talks about, you will find in Tanya. Hence my latest book, Tanya on mental health, because it's all here. And if you dig hard enough, you'll find ADD and ADHD and mood swings and schizophrenia. Yeah, maybe not with the way a psychologist and a therapist will bill it or deal with it, in the conventional way. I grant you that, absolutely. But in between the lines, you'll come up with ideas that can be helpful. So both are true. Okay, now let's learn the actual text. Is everything I said now clear? Any questions on what I said? Okay. Sefer Likutei Amorim. In other words, on top of the page it says Sifriya Lubavitch. Sifriya dash hyphen Oitzer Chassidim Lubavitch. That's not from the Alter Rebbe. That's the publishers. This is the Sfarim of the Hasidic treasures of the movement called Lubavitch. Then you have words Heichel Shlishi. That's also not from the Baal Tanya. That was added later, I think, by the previous Rebbe, where each Rebbe is given a gate and a portal. It's a way of identifying who it's from and what is it. So there is Sichos, there's Maimorim, and things like that. So, for example, look at the left side over there. It says Shar Rishon. What's Shar Rishon? Shar Rishon refers to the first thing of the Alter Rebbe, which is the Tanya. Shar Rishon. Heichel Shlishi. Kaivet Shalshelas Oy. So maybe Shar Rishon means the first gate, which would be Maimorim, and Heichel Shlishi, the third gate within the Maimorim, and he refers to Tanya. I don't know why, but that's what he writes. I have to look it up. Kaivet Shalshelas Oy, which means it's a kaivetz, it's a journal of continued light. But that's all not from the Baal Tanya. The first words from the Baal Tanya that he himself wrote is Sefer. Sefer Likutei Amorim. He says, this book is a collection of sayings. Right away, that's his humility. What do you mean? What is your first name? I forget. Your first name. No? Yeah. David. If you wrote a book, if you write a sefer, I write books. I put my name in them. A normal author puts their name into a book. In the cover page of the Alter Rebbe, you won't find his name. Why? Because he tells you right in the opening line, this book that supposedly I wrote, it's only Likutei Amorim. It's only a collection of things that I heard from others, sayings. So I'm basically a collector. So therefore, why should I write my name? Like I remember in my early days of writing, sometimes I'd write adapted by Rabbi Dalfin, because I felt like I didn't write this, I'm just collecting it, right? So the Alter Rebbe was doing the same thing. Sefer L'Kutei Amorim. Then he says Chelik Rishon. It's the first of 5 different parts. This is the first. And then he says Hanikra B'Shem. That's called with the name. That's as though it says the nickname. Hanikra B'Shem. What's the nickname to this Sefer? Sefer Shel Beinanim. A book for the average person, or another translation, Avram, intermediates. What does he mean with this? So there's a tradition in Chabad that the Alter Rebbe had written a Sefer for tzaddikim, but it never was published. Actually, it was burnt in a fire because it's not for the average person. You have a select group of holy people called tzaddikim. So from heaven, it's like God said, sorry, this is not necessary, and it never came to be. So one of the explanations of the word Sefer Shel Beinanim is, but this book, Tanya, is not like Sefer Shel Tzaddikim, which never came to be published and was burnt actually in the fire, but this did come out because it's a book for the average person. And I share with you that this is very important, for not just for me as a writer, but for us. And that is, when you write and you talk to the average person. Yes, Hillel.
Yeah, but very shortly he's going to define Beinanim in a way that excludes almost everybody. So.
I would say outwardly yes, but wait till we get there, and I hope I'll be able to share and convince you otherwise. And it's funny you say that. Just one story, and I want to go on. I taught Tanya in Marin County in 1985, 86. And I had, doctors. I had some of my congregants were doctors. They were head of departments in San Francisco and Marin at Kaiser Permanente, which is a medical group. One of them he wasn't really frum. He wasn't orthodox, observant, but he had a very good head, and he was very respectful, and a very good person, and we had a good connection. So I invited him, and he came, and we learned together from chapter 1 through 12. When he got to chapter 12, he didn't show up. So I called him and I said, "Hey, I so much enjoyed you because, it was intelligent, it was a great conversation, great learning. What happened?" He says, "Rabbi, I'm never going to be a Beinani." And he says, "I'm never going to be this prototype that the Alter Rebbe paints here, so I'm wasting my time." And I tried to convince him otherwise, and it didn't work. We still remained friends for many years, but so hopefully, Hillel, I'll be able to convince you that the Beinani, outwardly a Beinani is, as you say, someone who refined himself and and all that, as we'll see later. But if the Alter Rebbe, just think for a second, Hillel, if the Alter Rebbe meant that the Beinani is someone who we cannot be in any way, shape, or form, then we shouldn't be learning this, and he should have not written this. He's telling you that this Sefer, Moshe, is Sefer Shel Beinanim. It's a book for you. It's a book for me. It's a book for us, for the average person. And then he goes to describe this lofty figure. It's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction. So obviously, there's something about Beinani that is very, very much possible for us. Yes, the ultimate Beinani, as you referred to. Oh, that's, So it's important to put that in a perspective now. Otherwise, we shouldn't be learning this. And I really mean it. Otherwise, it's a total waste of time. Otherwise, it's like the Sefer Shel Tzaddikim. And why is it even around? And not only is it around, it's been learned for 200 years. in so many different people, in different countries, and it's just sprawling and continuing, and people from all kinds are being inspired. So obviously the message is true and valuable today. Okay, let's continue. Melukit mipi svarim. Now the Alter Rebbe said in the large bold words, Sefer Lekuti Amorim, it's a collection. So look at the word now here in the paragraph. Melukit, it's a collection, mipi svarim, from books, the mouth of books, umipi seifrim, and from the mouth of scribes. Who is it referring to, Velvo? The tradition of Chabad is, Svarim refers to the Maral mi Prague and the Shaloh HaKodesh. The Alter Rebbe was known as a Shaloh Yid. He studied Shaloh regularly. And Maral, of course, you will find ideas in Tanya that you will find at least the wording in Maharal. And umipi seifrim, simply he means the Baal Shem Tov and his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich. Kedoshei Elyoin, they're supernal, holy, they're very holy. Nishmosam Eden, their souls are in Eden, in Gan Eden. Stop. You stop there. Now comes what we call the tagline of Tanya. Right? Yoini. Every business, every corporation, every home, every family, what is your tagline? What is the tagline of Tanya? Now, the Rebbe says, Miyusid. This sefer is based on, its yesod, its foundation is, Al Posik, a verse in the Torah. Ki korev eilecha hadover mi'oid beficha uvelvavcha lasoisai. For this thing is near you, in your heart, in your mouth, in your heart, and to act upon. A pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim. What is Korev Mioid Hadover? What is Hadover referring to? Avram, Hadover Mioid, this thing. What? Animals, planes, fasting on Yom Kippur. What is it referring to? So Rashi says over there, Hadover Mioid refers to mitzvahs and Torah. It's Kikorav Hadover. It's very close to you. It's so close to you that you can easily speak about it, feel it in your heart, and act upon it. So number one, he tells you this is the tagline. Now comes his question on this tagline. Levayed Heitiv, in this book I'm going to explain very well, Eihu kored mi'oid, how it's very near you. What's the question? What is the Alter Rebbe saying? Why must I explain this to you, Hillel? And the answer is, it ain't near me. What's near me is sleeping and eating and pleasures. That's very near me. You're telling me to do a mitzvah is near me? No. I do it, but it's near me. It's close. It's natural, okay? It's natural, David, for me to do a mitzvah? No. But the Torah says, Ki korev elecha adarim moed. And not only does it say korov, it says korov mi'oid. And this is what the Alter Rebbe seeks to explain in his Tanya. And it's such a important insight. And it's really the tagline of Tanya. Why? In other words, what the Alter Rebbe is saying is, this book in front of you, this sefer, it's modus operandi. What I want from this sefer for all of you, the Alter Rebbe says, is that somehow you should come to understand and feel that the Torah is as close to you as your daily activities of sleeping and eating and everything else. And that's really a big question. No. You know? Right? Like I've said many times in our classes, it's natural to sleep and to eat. It's unnatural to learn and to daven. Even by the people that are learning and davening, it's not natural. They have to either force themselves or they're used to it by habit. But to say that it's natural, in other words, when fast is coming up tomorrow, when you don't eat a day, right? When you don't eat, you feel starving, you're hungry, you run right away to eat. No? Tell me. Have you met a Jew that feels that way if he didn't learn one day where he can't sleep and he can't eat and because he has to learn Torah? You won't find them so easily. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying the average person's not that way. So that's what the Alter Rebbe says. I'm telling you that this is the tagline of Tanya, but at the same time, I want you to know that what I'm going to do here is it has to be explained, and I have to prove it to you. And I'm going to prove it to you. Now let's continue the next 4 words. B'derech arucha u'ketzara be'ezras Hashem yisborech. And here ends the title page written by the Alter Rebbe. Everything else is not the Alter Rebbe's. And what does this mean? I'm going to explain it to you in a long, short way. In a long, short way. Now here, there are several meanings to what this means. But, in other words, I'm going to use an approach that's long, but at the end it's short. And briefly, this is what it means. I want to read from the Gemara in Eruvin. Amar Reb Shua ben Chananya says, no one kind of had victory over me except a tinuk. A young child got to me and he overpowered me. What happened? I'm reading from the Gemara. Pamachas, it's also in the lessons in Tanya and in other svarim. You can find it probably in English. Once, hayisem ahalach baderech, I was on the road, but and I saw a child. He was sitting at a crossroads on the road, on the way. Omarti loy, I said to him, Beni, my son, how do you get to the city? Omarli said to me, Zu arucha ptzara, v'zu ptzara arucha. There are 2 ways. One way is it's a much longer way, but at the end it's shorter, and the other way it's a shortcut. It's ptzara, but you end up taking more time. Arucha. Halachti b'ptzara v'arucha. So Rabbi Shua ben Chananya says, I started going on the shortcut, right? If someone tells you, Velvi, here's a shortcut, you try the shortcut. When I came to the metropolitan, to the city, it was surrounded by gardens and vineyards. I backed up. Let me just finish the Gemara. So Rabbi Shua said to the B'ni, you didn't tell. In other words, he couldn't get in. He had to, all of a sudden, the city was surrounded by all these gardens and things, and it took a lot to go through them to get to the city. So basically, he told him, listen, there are 2 ways to get there. And he called the ways, one the long, shorter way, and one the shorter, long way. The explanation is simple. That the long, shorter way, you go, there's no bushes, and you're already about to get into the city, you can't get in. Now there's gardens and bushes and thorns, and you can't get in. That's the short, longer way. The long, shorter way it takes you a lot longer to get there. But once you get there, you get in, because it's an open path. The Alter Rebbe is saying like this. This Chabad Hasidus, right? Let's not forget, the Tanya is for everyone, but the Tanya is he, as a Chabad Rebbe, is teaching a Shita in service of Hashem called Chochmah Bina Das. Chochmah Bina Das, the usage of the mind in understanding God and divinity is long process. If you want a shortcut, this isn't it. You're not getting a short. And we know here in our shir, we can start a mimer and finish 4 weeks later. He asks questions in the beginning and you don't get your answers. If you get answers till at the end. And many times the Chaver have asked, hey, what's the answer to the question? Why doesn't he answer right away? That ain't Chabad. That's Sfas Emes, Noam Elimelech, Kedushas Levi, and it's all Torah and it's all holy. But it's a different mahalach, a different style. The Alter Rebbe says here, and he says it clear, he's not fooling anyone, he's writing it right on the title page. My style is Arucha Uktzara. But when you go through this process, he says, you will get in. When you spend time, let's use contemporary words that Hillel's used to, in therapy, you will come out healthier. The avoda. The avoda's long and arduous. And it's and guess what? And sometimes it really hurts. Because when you have to look yourself in your face, and or you're talking to a counselor and you reveal your inside, it's very painful. But at the end, when you work it out, you come out cleaner and better and deeper and greater. And you really are someone who has gone through the wash machine and come out cleaner. And that's what the Alter Rebbe means. That's one meaning. Another meaning of what it says here is the difference between the first 17 chapters in Tanya and then 18 and 19. And briefly, the Alter Rebbe speaks later about developing a love for God, an Avas Hashem. So the first approach is to go through all your issues. In 17 chapters, he develops those issues. Who you are, how do you operate, understanding yourself, and then developing that love. So it's in a sense a created love. In 18 and 19, he says, no. You have the love, it's inside you. And the way it will come to the fruition is through self-sacrifice. So that's also a long versus shorter way. And we'll discuss that as we get to it. Finally, a third meaning of this, the Rebbe said, I think in 1951 or so, in the early years, which is along the lines of the first thing I told you, that the approach of Chabad, he said, that the chassid comes home and his wife says, you went to a Rebbe, you went away for a month, in those days, you traveled. What did you come back with? Oh, he says, with this mimer and that mimer. And she says, what did you gain? I need some money to pay the bills, to give our kids the bread and all that. And the chassid starts wondering, Taki, what did I do so long and so long? And it's long, it's arduous, and it takes time. But at the end, he's a happier husband. He's a happier father. He's a better father, better father, a better person. When you use your brain, your seichel, to understand godliness, and not just say, it's written this way, just do it. No. You of course you do it, but you do it because you seek to understand, and you seek to develop. The mind should infiltrate the heart, so that when you have an emotion, your emotion is guided by an intelligence. Then you're a much richer person. Your personality now is permeated with a good grounding and understanding, so that when you do it with tremendous morchayos. In other words, person puts on tefillin. Why? The Torah says put on tefillin. But if you understand what tefillin is, and you understand that every morning you have a chance to bind yourself to Hashem because you understand what the parshas of tefillin are about, and what the bracha is about, and the details, your tefillin that you put on in the morning should give you a much greater elation than just putting on tefillin. And, of course, the issue is the time and all that. We're not talking about that. That's already up to us to decide how to do it. But the Alter Rebbe says, it's long. My style, he says, is it's arucha. But b'derech arucha tzara. This style will ultimately be short because you won't fool yourself. And I could tell you, from being in the community so many years, in many communities as I travel, I could tell you that this is true. Probably, from what I've seen, the true Chabad Hasidim are the least to fool themselves. They know very well who they are. They know exactly their weaknesses, and they aren't pompous because they know their weaknesses. And they don't pretend to be someone else who they are. And I'm talking about true Chassidim, not just talking about any Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street that says he's a Lubavitcher. I'm talking about someone who learns Chassidus and davens with Chassidus and works with Chassidus. It's a different person. And I'm saying this to make one greater than the other, chas v'sholom. I'm just saying that the avodah that the Alter Rebbe shares in Tanya, and he tells us at the beginning, this is my Tanya. So therefore, Chavri, he says, bear with me. It's going to be long. But at the end of the day, it's going to pay off. And you're going to thank me. He doesn't say that. I'm paraphrasing. That we spent all this time in mind understanding and work, filtering the heart, so the heart is pure and loving with an intelligence, and that you should never, you won't walk away saying, I know who I am, I know how to learn, and all that. And I saw this by my teachers, from Rabbi Yoel Kahn, my Mashpia, who was a genius of geniuses, but his humility was so refreshing. And let's take it at Moshe Feinstein. I'll talk about a Moshe who wasn't a chassid, but a Moshe had this anivus, this modesty, that although he was such a Talmud Chacham, such a Goin, and such a Paisik, he could talk to you like two friends meeting each other in shul, and let's have a cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying? This humility. So one day you could see him speaking with a big Talmud Chacham, and the other day with a boy 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, asking him what he learned in Mishnayos. And when you learn Chassidus for the average person, this causes that. Okay, Chavra, we'll continue tomorrow. I hope it was good.
Good. It's a good beginning.
A good beginning. Thank you. Sei gesund and Psuris Tevis. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.